So I never really been into card games. In fact, most of the ones that I played previously, I didn't really like at all, or I just felt very bored trying to play it. Something about the gameplay of card games just never really appealed to me, and I never really found them that fun. So, of course, you can imagine what happened when I played Slay the Spire. I liked it, of course. I mean, what? At first, I didn't really expect much, to be honest, just another deck building roguelike that I would play for probably a few minutes before moving on. And the only reason I even ever gave this game a try was because it has been sitting in my library for probably a few years now. I'm not even sure how long, but I got it a long time ago from a Humble Bundle, but I never played it. I always heard good things about it, but I seen it was a card game, so I never really decided to give it a try. And this is kind of weird for me because, again, I don't really like card games. I never bother playing them, and the ones that I have played I didn't like. But something about this game just broke through that. It broke through my usual dislike for this genre, and it just hooked me in a way that no other deck builder ever has. Most of the time, one of the biggest reasons I don't really care about most card games is the visuals. They always just seem to be a bit bland for me or boring. On top of that, they can also sometimes be a bit overwhelming as there's often a ton of cards, maybe even hundreds of cards and dozens of combos, and it takes a lot of time for certain games to click as you learn the cards and you learn how everything works and you learn some strategies. But Slay the Spire just kind of eases you in. You start with a basic deck that makes sense. It has attack cards, defend cards, and maybe a couple of special abilities, and it gives you just enough to start making some decisions and some choices without feeling lost, and you can grasp the mechanics pretty easily without needing a tutorial. The game also gives you a ton of visual feedback for basically everything that you do. And then as you progress, you naturally start understanding synergies and strategies, not because the game forces you down a certain path or forces you to do anything, but because it lets you discover everything at your own pace. One of the main things that kept me coming back was also the roguelike structure of the game. I might not be a huge fan of card games, but I am a massive fan of roguelike games, roguelite games, and survivors like games, and I always have trouble saying those if I try to say them any faster. The idea of improving just a little bit with every run, unlocking new things, and figuring out better strategies over time is just something that always keeps me hooked. And at first, that's what got me hooked on it because I made it to the final first boss. That actually sounds weird, but I made it to the first boss and then I lost. But because I didn't want it to end there because I hate losing, I was like, I can beat this boss. So I did another run determined to just beat that boss. And when I got there to the boss round, well, it was a different boss this time. It was a slime instead of the guardian, and I found myself enjoying the gameplay loop too. So I kind of got addicted. And I ended up destroying that slime boss, but I think it was more because the slime boss is way easier than the Guardian, and I think that's why I won. Slay the Spire just does something perfectly, and that is, even when I lost a run, I felt like I've learned something. Maybe I picked the wrong cards, maybe I played the wrong cards during battle, or made some other bad decisions. Maybe I underestimated an enemy, maybe I just got unlucky, but the game always made me want to try again. And because each run is slightly different, it never got stale. One run I'd be focusing on poison damage with the silent character, the next I'd be stacking like blocks or counterattacks or something with ironclad, and sometimes I'd get a ridiculous build with one of them and just delete enemies in one turn, which was very satisfying. I would just destroy enemies before they had a chance to even hurt me. In fact, this game was actually way more satisfying than I thought it would be if I'm being honest. The variety of builds and the differences between the characters made me want to keep coming back and trying different things, and it also made me want to unlock new characters. There's also different acts that can have different bosses spawn at the end, and each act gets tougher and tougher, and you'll have to try and make your way all the way to the end, which is past Act 3, and to the end game boss, which I'll be honest, I haven't made it there yet. I haven't made it that far, but I hope to at some point. There's also other stuff to do besides battles. Like there are merchants where you can buy cards or artifacts. There are events where you make decisions where it could lead to new cards, buffs, or debuffs. And they're kind of like mini stories, which is also awesome. And it kept it more interesting that there were breaks between the fights sometimes. And it was also kind of neat that you can choose your path. You can choose the path that you want to take to get to the boss. And that's pretty cool. I'm not sure it makes a huge difference, but it's cool. You also have your campfire sometimes where you can choose to rest and regain health, or you can upgrade a card. All of this just came together to create a fun, interesting experience. Also, I mentioned artifacts earlier, and those are things that will give you buffs, debuffs, or both at the same time. They can be found in chests or from defeating bosses, and they usually make you stronger. There are also potions that have a ton of different effects which can help you win fights. In fact, sometimes you might not win the fight without some of your potions. One of the worst things in any game is when you lose and you feel like it was completely out of your control. But in Slay the Spire, every time I lost, I knew exactly why. Maybe I picked the wrong cards, maybe I played the right cards but in the wrong order, maybe I underestimated an enemy, but it never was just bad luck. It was always something I could have done better, or I could have made a better decision. And that's what made it fun, because even when I lost, I felt like I was getting better. Plus, the game rewards progress. So even if you fail a run, you're still making progress by unlocking new characters, new cards, and new relics that give you more options for your next attempt. There are even some mechanics in the game where at first I was like, yeah, I'm not sure why I would ever need to use that. Like for example, there's a mechanic where you can remove a card from your deck, and at first I was like, yeah, I'm not sure I'll ever use that. Why would I ever want to get rid of my cards? But then you can get curse cards that will do nothing but waste a card slot, and then you can draw them, and then you might get a couple of them in your hand, and basically they're just wasting your turn. But you can then remove them from your deck, which will help you out because now a curse card that you can't even use isn't taking up any of your slots, so you can get a card that's actually useful in your hand instead of a curse card that does nothing. Now, for example of another card game I tried recently, it's called Balloons Card Storm, and the only reason I even gave that game a try was because it's part of the Balloon series, and I've always found those games fun, mostly the tower defense ones, but I thought I would give the game a try since it was part of the Balloon series. And my goodness, I was bored to death playing that game. I mean, that game was so slow and so unfun. I couldn't get past an hour of that game. I thought maybe it was just I have to learn it a little bit more and play it a little bit more, and then I'll get used to it. But my goodness, that game was so unfun. I can't believe it's even part of the Balloon series, in my opinion. And I'm not even sure if it's because I just don't like games like that, but I mean, even the game has mixed reviews, so I'm not even sure if it's just me or maybe it's really just a bad game. So here's the thing, I still really don't care much for card games, at least most of them. But Slay the Spire, it's just different. It's a game that makes me start to rethink about this whole genre. Maybe there are some card games that I would like, or maybe this is just it in the whole genre. All I know is that Slay the Spire did something so far that no other card game has done, which is make me enjoy it. So if you're like me, someone who doesn't usually enjoy card games or always brushes them off, maybe you should give Slay the Spire a chance. You might just like it. But anyways, that's going to be it for this video, so I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to hit that like button, leave a comment below, tell me what you think about card games and Slay the Spire and this video. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button because you want to be subscribed, and I will see you next time.